Hello, my name is Cassandra Blanco. I am Roman Catholic and I welcome you to my podcast. Today's guest is my friend Gina Abols. Do you want to say hi, Gina?
Hi.
and I'm just going to read a short biography about her and just share as well. She's a dear friend of mine. We know each other from being in Focus together. We were Focus missionaries together and met each other during our summer training, I think in 2008. Is that right?
So,
Yes, crazy in North Carolina. So, Gina was born and raised in Colorado. Gina has worked for the U.S. Olympic Committee, the Fellowship of Catholic University Students, and in the healthcare industry. In 2012, she married her husband, Andy, and together they have 5 children. Their second child was born with spina bifida and so began their journey as a special needs family. After the birth of their fifth child, Gina became a stay at home mother and began a new chapter of homeschooling. She loves the Lord deeply. She is refreshed in the outdoors and she enjoys sitting down with a cup of tea and a good book or a dear friend. So, welcome, my friend.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, I'm so grateful that you're here. Our lives diverged after I left Focus in 2012, and I had been on the East Coast, and then I was out in Colorado for a year. But our paths actually in Focus didn't cross very much. It was just at summer trainings that we really got to spend time together. So that's where we met, and we've stayed in contact on and off over the years, but recently reconnected. So grateful that you said yes to my podcast.
And thank you for asking me. It's so good to see you.
Yes. All right, my friend. So why don't we go ahead and jump in? You can share just a little bit about, like, if you want to delve a little bit deeper about your history, where were you born, where were you raised, and faith as well, growing up.
Okay. I was born and raised in Littleton, Colorado, where I've spent the majority of my life. There have been phases where I've spent a year here and there, but for the most part, I've been in Colorado. And I grew up with a younger brother and in the Catholic Church. I went to a Catholic school till typical childhood, I would say. Um, as a child, I was more of a rule follower. So that sort of translated into my faith that I knew it was the right thing to do to follow all these rules of the church, but I wouldn't say I felt noticed by the Lord as a child. I always was seeking to be like just seeking Him in way of I want to know that He is real, but I wouldn't say that it was an intimate relationship as a child.
Hmm.
Um, I, I would say the first time that began to change was in high school. A youth minister approached me and at church and asked if I wanted to attend one of the youth groups. And I had tried from time to time, but it never really was a great fit. I always felt really cliquey, and I just didn't feel like I fit in very well. But because this was a personal invitation, I was much more open. So it was a sleepover at her house, sort of an event. And it's a fun story, but the short end of the story is that I got lost on the way there because I have no sense of direction. And I called her in tears and just totally humiliated. And I was like, I'm not coming. I can't come anymore. So I'm just so out of sorts. And she drove like 20 minutes to my house to come pick me up. And she took
Oh.
me, and it was just so sweet and so intentional. And it sort of just opened my eyes to what a friend could do, like what the depth of friendship. I had never experienced that before, and in it from a youth minister at church. So that sort of opened my
Hmm.
heart to begin with. I think she began to show me how the Lord was pursuing my heart. And then when I graduated high school, I just on a whim went to a Steubenville of the Rockies conference because my brother was going, and I thought I've always wanted to do a retreat. I'll do this, but that's not much of a retreat. I didn't really know the difference. And the Lord had great plans in store. And ultimately, what I came away with from that weekend, it was a very powerful weekend. And I would say that was probably where my conversion happened. Initially, it was just I understood God as my father and that he deeply loved me and that he was real. And I knew, like, I had an encounter with him and I knew he was good, and that he desired for me to be there. And it was the first time my heart was truly open to him. Like just the doors just flew open, and he just healed so many things in my heart. And of course, it took a lot of time to heal a lot of the deeper wounds, but like it was pretty powerful. So that was right before I went to college, where I went to CSU, Colorado State University. And I was hoping to just grow, like to continue this trajectory of, I knew that it was easy to fall away. And I didn't want that to happen. And I wanted to meet good friends and get involved in the church. And the church was not well at our college when I went there. That was the campus church. And so it was actually quite a journey all 4 years. There were a lot of twists and turns, and I just tried my hardest to find the Lord in college. And I would say that I I held the line, but I did not grow closer to him necessarily. I desired to, but it wasn't until focus actually came to my campus my senior year. And that was good. It was very good. It was the beginning, but it was still like I was living two different lives. I still didn't know how to integrate, and I had done a really good job. Like comparing myself to all my friends from college, I was really good and holy, but comparing myself to these missionaries, I was not good and holy, and didn't really know how to reconcile those two things. So I actually applied to be a focused missionary right out of college, but I didn't feel any peace. And so I did not say yes. And I think that was, I mean, God works through all things. I don't know. Did he want me to say yes? I don't know, but I didn't. I went and worked, as I mentioned, for the United States Olympic Committee with USA Triathlon. And it was amazing. Just an amazing job. I got paid nothing, but it was so fun. And I traveled and I made so many friends. I mean, it's kind of a hard way to start your career because I had no complaints and it was just adventure.
Mm.
And while I was working there, he needed to break my heart. And it was very good in looking back, but it was also one of the most difficult experiences to that point I had been through. And in my shattered state, I was desperate for him. And so at some point while I was with USA Triathlon, I had met up with some friends and we started a young adult group. And that kind of became some sort of a foundation for me because I still was desiring to grow in my faith, but still had not received the fullness of what I was looking for. So they were very supportive. And having just a little bit of a dabble in ministry, I just wanted more. It was like, this is good, but I need to do more than this. This is God's asking more. So I came back to focus. And while I was a missionary, that's when I met you, Cassandra.
Mhm.
And so while I was a missionary, it was like my second year or something, I met a priest who just really showed me how the Lord was pursuing my heart. And it was the second phase of, I would say, that conversion of like, he had prepared the soil and he had healed me in so many ways. And my initial conversion was understanding God as my father, but this was understanding what that means to be his daughter.
Mhm.
And like, it was like a light bulb. Like, I guess if God's my father, that means I'm his daughter. Whoa. It totally changed the way I saw the Lord. And, yeah, so I would say that's kind of how my faith, from that point, it was like a whole new trajectory and I guess a maturing in my faith. And yeah, I would say that kind of brought me to where I mean, I was a missionary before that, obviously, and I had grown a lot in prayer, but it was after that point that I understood who I was and that God had an active plan and like he wanted me to understand my identity in him.
Mhm. Okay, so why don't we just go back a little bit back into your story? So, in terms of Steubenville, can you explain what that is? You said you went to a
Oh yeah.
Steubenville conference, the Steubenville Rockies conference, and what happened that you felt like you really had an encounter there? What was it particularly that happened? If you can go into that a little bit.
Yep. So Steubenville, there's a university called Franciscan University of Steubenville. It's in Ohio. And they put on these conferences for high school kids. And they're large. I mean, thousands of kids. And I thought it was a retreat, but that's not what a retreat is. It was just like an opportunity to drink from the fire hydrant. You go to different talks. And this one, I don't even actually know what the theme was. But every talk, it felt like the message I was getting is God is your father and he loves you and God is your father, God is your father. And I didn't have a great understanding of that. I had had a hard relationship with my dad and he was there, but it was just really a struggle. And he worked a lot. And so he just was not as present as I always wanted him to be. So being hearing God is your father, God is your father, it was more confusing than anything. And during adoration, I just was praying like, Lord, just please open my heart. I know that it's not open. I do not know how to open it. I I would will it to open if I could, but I don't know what to do. And something during adoration, the Holy Spirit just, it was almost like there was just enough of a crack for him to pull
Mm.
it open. And he did. And it's just like all of a sudden it was just,
Mm.
and I just sobbed, it was just this like it was this healing tears that I needed to know. I needed him to touch my heart in a particular way, and he did. And I just remember just accepting and understanding God is my father. Like I don't really understand logically why that is. I just know it's true, and I'm grateful. And I realize like my dad is doing the best he can, and he's an earthly father there, like he has his limits too, and whatever he does is a bonus because I have this perfect father who it was just like I just didn't know that. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure I had heard it up to that point, but at that point it was like once my heart had opened to that love to receive it, it was, I would say, the first time I ever received love. There were a lot of people who loved me throughout my life, but I don't know that I fully received it until I received his love first. And it was cool because my brother was on that same conference and he was next to me and he was going through his own, like he was I think he was being touched by the Holy Spirit in his own way. And that was the first time he and I ever told each other we loved each other.
Oh.
And it was just a really, I mean, when you're growing up, you more fight with your siblings than anything. So we were, and older. He was a sophomore in high school. I had just graduated. So we were kind of more mature. I don't know, it was just really special to have that moment with him too.
Yeah. And then maybe can you, and just for those that are not familiar, adoration is Eucharistic adoration, where we believe that Jesus is present in the Eucharist and we go to adore him. So at Steubenville conferences, that happens. That's a central part of a Steubenville conference is there's talks, there's also Eucharistic adoration every single night with and for everyone. And I know many people who have come to know Christ and fall in love with God through Steubenville conferences. So they're very, very powerful. They happen all over the country as well. Can you also just, I guess, also hone in at your time at the U.S. Olympics Committee? You broke up just a little bit. So you had,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, over the part where you said that there was something that broke. I missed that part. So what happened when you were at the Olympics committee? I know you mentioned that you wanted more to do something more meaningful. So that was a part, but what happened the part that I missed?
I was in a relationship and he ended up breaking my heart in
Okay.
so many pieces. And so it just brought me to my knees in a way that nothing else had ever brought me to my knees. I mean, probably something I should mention because it adds to the story later is that I had always been strong in I was an athlete growing up and I had physically been strong, emotionally I had been strong. Um, my parents went through a divorce while I was in high school and I really had to step up and help my mom a lot in a lot of ways. I really grew up quickly in high school because of that. And so I had to be emotionally strong for her, and I just had never been weak. And that was probably the first time when my heart was broken that I felt weak. I just felt like I need Jesus to get through the day. I don't know how to move forward. And it was so good. I would never have said that in the moment, but looking back, it was so good to have that just to fall to my knees. It was the first time I started going to daily mass. I didn't really know that people did that very often, but it was like, how can I be closer to God? Because he's the one that I need the most right now. So,
Oh, beautiful. And then back to college too. The other part was how you had mentioned how the church where you were at Colorado State University, this is in the United States. So at Colorado State University, the church was really not good. You said not good, I think is the words you
No,
used.
yeah, not
Yeah,
well.
or not well. Can you expound what you mean by that? And you said you also lived a double life, like you were doing one, you were doing the other. Can you expound on a little bit of that as well? Especially for
Hmm.
people that might be in college now or thinking, or were in college and did some of these things. Just thinking about the people that might be in college and struggling with the same thing if they haven't found a strong Catholic community in college, that wrestling. So can you expound on
Yeah.
that too?
I right away like went to mass the first Sunday I was at on campus, and it was tons of people were there. The energy was good. And then as the mass went on, it just I got this feeling of like there is no life in this church,
Mm,
but there are all these people who are seeking it, and part of receiving or part of the Eucharist is that there are certain rules, or I don't know if they're rules, but there are requirements that need to take place in order for the host to be consecrated. And so one of those things is unleavened bread. And I think it was unleavened bread. And like there were just some things that throughout the mass, I can't remember in particular what it was. There were just things where I'm like, man, this is sure strange. And there's like basketball hoops around the worship center. Like it was clear. It was just it was not a holy worship space that I was used to. And that's fine. Like I can get past that. Who knows? Who knows why? But as I would continue to go, they had like a welcome retreat and they called it a retreat. It was like a newcomers freshman retreat. And really all it was a scavenger hunt through Fort Collins. Um, and remember someone in my small group had asked our small group leader about confession, like, why do we go to confession? And he was like, I don't know. I don't really understand it either. And I was like, man, I need to be fed. Like this is if I can't ask questions here, where am I supposed to ask them?
mhm.
And it was just as time went on, like some of the preaching and stuff, it was really like free love kind of like it was all about food. There were these two women who were the campus ministers, and they would just attract the college students with food. Everything. I mean, everything we did, it was like there was going to be free food, so please come. There's going to be free snacks, and that's good. You have to attract college students, but that was sort of like where it ended, and it just didn't feel like there was any emphasis on growing in your faith and the sacraments and praying, and that was what I desired. And so I really stuck it out as much as I could most of that year, but I didn't have a car, so I couldn't go anywhere else. I just felt like I don't even know if this is truly the Eucharist, first of all.
Mm.
I just don't know. And I feel more empty when I leave Mass than when I came. And then I found there were like lay people hearing confessions and like really new agey. I mean, it was like wacko stuff was going on. And I think the priest that had been there after 2 years got either he retired or was reassigned. I don't know. And the priest that came afterwards was at least following the rules. I would say he was not a net gain or a net loss. It was like he was doing the minimum, and I think he was a good man. But by that point, my roommate had a car, so I would borrow her car or take her with me, and we would go to other churches in the area. And one of the things I did was help a youth group at another church when I could borrow her car, and that was ironically, the youth director at this church had graduated from Franciscan University. And so I was like, of course, all excited. Oh, that's where my conversion happened. And you get it. And it was really good for me. He was only there for a year, he and his wife. And it was really good for me just to participate in that. I had never really participated in a youth group myself as a high school kid. So, I was a college student. Like I never planned on joining a sorority. It just sort of happened. I I I joined too many activities. I easily get interested in hobbies and things, and so I tried to hold back a little bit in college, but I I joined this I tried to do Palms like a dance team, and I didn't make the original team, and they wanted to turn this color guard in the band into dance. And so I was like, sure, I'll try. I had never done anything with band. I have no musical talent. I don't understand any of it. And so that was a whole experience on its own. So I was doing band as a I don't know, sort of dancing, sort of that first year. And I joined a sorority and I wondered why I got bad grades because I like didn't spend any time, I was studying, but not like I needed to because I was doing these other things. So, but like when I say I held the line, like I didn't drink. And that's what most college students, they go and get drunk. So I was like, well, I go to these parties with my friends, but I drink water. And I'm always the one that's responsible for them. I'm holding the line and I have standards and I didn't really date that much, but like if there were opportunities, I held a line with dating, that you have to respect me and that kind of thing. So I had some sort of an awareness, but all the friends I was making were not that way. And I was trying to make good friends. Like I had tried to make friends at the church, but I would see them at parties drunk. These people I'm trying to meet at church, they're all drunk at these parties I would see. And I was like, why, how am I supposed to make friends? I don't understand. I just was lost.
Mm.
So I joined the sorority thinking I'm going to influence them. And I would just dream of like, maybe I could take him to church with me sometime. And um, I think looking back, they influenced me more than I influenced them. Maybe I did. I don't know. But I feel
Mhm.
like I became hardened. And so I never did the bad thing. Like my actions were good, but my heart had become hard. And so I was like tolerating all these there's just the talk that takes place in a sorority and the behaviors. Like I just said, like, well, if that's up to you, if you want to do that, I'm not going to do it. But I had then become tolerant of all of it. And it
Mhm.
was just desensitized. And like, as time went on, I would, have these relationships where maybe I would sleep over at the boys' house, but never, we didn't do anything. But like, I'm putting myself in a position that is compromising,
Mhm.
you know? So there were things like that. I think the biggest thing is the hardness of my heart and, maybe being overactive in a lot of like activities and things that I just didn't have the deep friendships I desired. Yeah, until focus came and all of a sudden you have disciplers who walk with you and they'll go through scripture with you. They lead a Bible study and they really just try to model a life lived for Christ and they invite you into that and
Mhm.
help you, along the way, which is exactly what I needed. But my first discipler was very I would say meek. And I don't know, I'm sure you can always, I don't know, now as an adult, I'm like, you always see the inconsistencies in young people. They think they're hiding it, but you know. So I'm sure she knew, but she didn't really call me out until like the second discipler came along. And then she was like, why are you living like this? And I was like, "Yeah, I don't think you understand. You should see my friends. I'm doing so well, you know?
Right.
I,
She
and
was
then,
she was raising you to a higher standard. And you're like,
yes,
wait
and
a
I had
minute.
never
Do you know my friends
never
and
been
what they do?
challenged higher.
Right.
Because I'm like, I'm doing a great job. You just don't understand. I was thinking a little too highly of myself. So, yeah, I would say it was like this. I still wanted to have my friends from the sorority and have this life that like I was still doing all the right things, not recognizing what it was doing to my heart. And I wasn't willing to give that up for the sake of what I needed. And I still was wanting to be fed. I was driving the first discipler. There's a campus that was 45 minutes away. I would drive to that campus for Bible study with these girls I didn't know because I just desired so badly to grow. And I just kept searching and searching and I could not find ways to grow. And then finally it comes to me and I'm like, no, I'm not, I'm doing a great job.
That's awesome. All right. So you end up then, so you got in discipleship, you tasted both Steubenville and Focus. You had taste of spiritual depth and meaning and purpose. You do the U.S. Olympics committee after college and you do that work. You desire more. You end up becoming a Focus missionary. And there you really encounter the depth of the Father's love. And do you want to share anything else about that before we move on to also then how you met your spouse? Anything else you want to share about your time in Focus?
Um, I think it was healing in some ways, in some big ways, because as I have mentioned, my 4 years in college was this searching for God and like desiring to grow. but not knowing where to find that. And so as a missionary, I was sent to two amazing campuses where Catholic ministry was thriving. Was sent to University of Colorado in Boulder, which you wouldn't think had a thriving ministry, but it was way healthier and more robust than what I was experiencing at Colorado State, which is the ag school. So you would just think it would be the opposite, that this
Mm,
crazy city party town of Boulder, you wouldn't find it. But everyone is what's the word? I can't think of the word. It's like crazy about something. Like I can't think of the word, but like you have your thing where you are really eccentric about it, you know? And if that happens to be God, then that's your thing. That's awesome, you know?
mm,
So I don't know what it was beautiful. Like the priests were so faithful and the students, it was just, I was like, I feel like I never got this. I always wanted this. And I'm so grateful to be here of all places in Boulder. So I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and I would say that was the most impactful year of focus for me. It was my third year as a missionary, but the priests there in a way that I had never experienced and I had always longed for. So they were living out this fatherhood that I had desired, you know, and I met that priest at summer training, as I mentioned, but he was not at my campus. And so these priests were on my campus day in and day out, and they were just true fathers, and they just saw us as like part of the flock, you know, and I had been longing for that. And so learning how, not just how to pray, because I had been praying, but learning how to just be in God's presence without doing the talking. And because I needed it, you know, just and learning how to have form these habits that will dispose you to God's grace in a generous way, not in an obligatory way, was really impactful. And plus, like, it's the Midwest, and there are so many, I mean, all the students were from these small towns and
mhm, mhm.
just good people, you know? So it was just, I don't know, it was really a beautiful year. And I
Mhm,
would say that's where my, I just was able to fly from there.
mhm.
And I think I needed, focus was as probably more impactful on me than I was on the students, just in my formation and learning how to have good habits and live the faith out, you know? And I cannot remember what you had asked before that. Is there anything else I wanted to share?
Mhm.
I think that was just it, just learning how to be more like desirous of God's will and listening to him, to that still small voice, you know?
Mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, Midwest, there's beautiful people. I love Midwesterners. You know, when I was a missionary, I worked at Temple University in Philadelphia and then at George Washington University. That was my fourth year. But in between, I went to Colorado. And even just joining Focus, it's a lot of Midwesterners, a lot of people from Nebraska and Kansas. And it is just good hearted people. And a lot of success on those campuses too. I think because naturally there's a lot of Christians in the Midwest, whereas opposed to the East Coast where I served, it was really hard territory. You know, there was a lot
Hmm.
less Christianity being practiced in the areas I was in. So, yeah, I love the Midwest. I love the Midwest. The people there, beautiful people.
Hmm. Hmm.
All right, so let's go ahead and move on. So why don't you go ahead now and just share how you met your now
Okay.
husband? So that story. And I don't know if you want to share anything about dating. I know you dated other people. If you want to say anything about that, or you can just share about how
No.
you met your husband. Sounds good.
Yeah. Um, so my mom was a dental hygienist for her career, and this woman came to her clinic and had my mom, you know, clean her teeth. And my mom would have my picture, my brother's picture up in her operatory. And so this woman, I mean, everyone asked questions. I think a lot of people know a lot of things about me that I don't realize just because they were patients of my mom. But she said, I think your daughter would like my brother. And so my mom had tried to set me up far too many times and it never worked out. And so I was like, I was getting ready to move to Wisconsin actually. So I was like, I have to say no because you're going to keep doing this if I don't say no. So I was like, no, I am not meeting anybody else. I'm moving. This is not no. And then she was like, well, he knows you're moving. And I was thinking, okay, if it doesn't work out, which is highly likely, then I can just say, you know, what a bummer. 3 hour conversation. The first time I met him, I was like, I'm just gonna all the stuff that I usually hide for a date or two. I'm just gonna lay it out there
Mm-hmm.
and scare him away, you know? And you know, when I'm waiting until I'm married to have sex, and I'm a Catholic missionary, and I live that out, and I pray, and and like I am conservative, I have conservative values, and all these things that usually scare people away. And he was like, I like that. That's awesome. And he's like matching it, you know, like he had the same values. He was a fifth of five kids. So he grew up with a really tight knit family, and like he grew up Catholic. He was searching, like he had persuaded to become Protestant at one point. He had moved to Florida actually, for several years, and then had come back home wanting to change his life and like make some reforms and find God. So I think at that point he was committed to being Catholic, but not didn't know what that looked like. So he was definitely on the very beginning phases of his journey of faith, but he appreciated it, and he was like kind of thrown off a little bit by especially like waiting until marriage. It was like, whoa, I've never met anyone like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been looking for a different kind of a girl, and so I think that's good. I'm willing to stick this one out. Because I was like, and it's not one of those things. And so the date went really well. I mean, everything, we talked for 3 hours, but it was great. So anyway, it was a 3 hour date, and then he didn't call me for 2 weeks, 2 whole weeks, and I was moving in three. So, and he knew I was moving 3 weeks after that first time we met, and he didn't call me for 2 weeks. And I was like, I must have been living in an alternate universe, because I thought that date went so well, and he didn't even text me. I mean, nothing for 2 whole weeks. It was just like crickets. And he still to this day is like, it wasn't 2 weeks. I'm like, trust me, it was 2 weeks. If you were being interviewed for a job and they didn't call you for 2 weeks, you would remember. And that's how it felt. That's how important it is to a woman. Like, I know it was 2 weeks to the day. And he had mentioned how he liked like country swing dancing. And all I want to do is go country swing dancing with him, and then he never has to call me again. But that's all I want to do. And then I'm going to move, and it's fine. I won't even be hurt, but like I just want to go do that. And by the time the 2 weeks had come up, I was actually pretty angry. I'm like, I don't ever want to see him again. That was so disrespectful that he didn't call me for so long. And so he called me, and he's like, do you want to go to the Grizzly Rose to go country swing dancing? And I was like, you are so lucky that's the date that you asked me on. I would have said no to any other date. So it was great. I mean, we had a lot of fun. I think we got together for like 3 dates maybe before I moved. And so it was hard, because it was like, well, we went country swing dancing. It was great. I think we had 2 or 3 dates after that initial meeting, and then I moved. And so it was tough, because it was like, I mean, if normal circumstances, we would have continued to let time take its course and go at this pace. But now I'm moving, and now we have to have this conversation. What do we do? Mm. We're still just deciding, like, would we even want to be friends, let alone date? And so I moved, and we just said, let's keep talking, very unspecific. And then I think it was also very good that I was in Madison, because the priests there really they just want people to find their vocations. So they do everything they can to support that. And one of the things they preached about to the students is men find a marriage. And it was like I had never heard that before, that it's more important. Oh, shoot. Am I still here?
You're here.
Oh, good. It says internet connection is unstable.
Well,
okay.
You said men
find a woman who prays. And so that I had never heard that before, but the focus for women to find men with natural virtue versus men who are doing all the right things right now. Because I was looking for a man who was doing all the right things, who has had a holy hour, who was going to mass at least once a week, but if not daily, all of the things right. Then I know he's a good man, thinking it's like the fruits, good fruits of a tree. But they were saying, just find a man with natural virtue, and he will find the Lord. And so that is what I just kept listening, like, okay, I guess I'm gonna take this into consideration, because Andy had natural virtue. He had none of the habits. I mean, even before I left, I remember asking, do you want to pray before our meals? And he was like, no, I don't really like writ prayer. I was like, okay. So I would pray and he would just sit there. And then another time I would say, well, do you want to just do spontaneous prayer? Do you want to pray together and not writ prayer? He's like, no, I'm good. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll just sit here silently. Okay, I guess yeah, so I just pray by myself. It's so awkward. And I just kept thinking, I don't know how this is going to work because this man does not pray. And if I'm not going to marry him, then I'm not going to keep talking with him. So I fully expect to pray with my spouse. I just don't know how this is going to work. So in the back of my mind, I'm just thinking, I don't think this is going to work. But I have no reason to break up with him. Or like, we weren't even officially a couple yet. But I had no reason to stop talking to him because everything else was so happy with how things were going. So I'm like, I can't just say you didn't pray with me before meals, and so
Mm.
therefore I can't talk to you anymore. And as I'm in Madison, these priests are saying, look for a man with natural virtue. So I was just totally confused. Like he has natural virtue, but he won't pray. He won't do all those things. So I guess I have to keep waiting. And I think that was part of the beauty is understanding as a woman, it's our job to discern as we go, and it's the man's job to lead. And so I just let him lead the relationship and just you go at the pace. And I'm just, if at any point I feel like this is not good or healthy, then I'll end it there. But at this point, nothing concrete except for I'm annoyed that you don't want to pray. Um, and then he stopped. So he was just as bad at communicating with me at this point as he was after that first date. Like he would go 10 days without reaching out to me. And we're not like official. Nothing is, I don't even know where this is right now. So to wait 10 days, it was like, I am getting mad at him until he finally reaches out. And then when he would reach out, he would say, it was like a Wednesday. What are you doing on Saturday? Do you want to talk? And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is moving at a snail's pace. Yes, we can talk on Saturday. Why do we have to wait 10 days, 14 days before we talk?
Hmm.
And I don't know he doesn't even know what he was doing. But so eventually I was noticing that I was getting really mad at him in between. Like, you just keep waiting. I don't know if you're ever going to reach out to me again. It's not like, hey, well, I'll talk to you next week. It's just, okay, well, have a good day. Bye. And there was nothing. So one day I had it and I was like, you need to do more. I'm sorry. I don't know what I don't know where we are, but I really need more from you because I'm getting mad at you in the in between. And it doesn't even, he's like, I just am not a phone person. I'm like, you don't have to talk to me on the phone. You could send me an email. You could send me a text message. It doesn't have to be a conversation. Just, hey, I'm thinking about you. Hope you're having a great day. Just contact because I'm all the way across the country and it's just really easy for my mind to wander. And I didn't know how he was going to respond. But every time I would raise the bar for him, he would he would rise to the occasion. And I just was so amazed. I didn't scare him away. And he was like, I really appreciate that. And then he did exactly what I told him I needed, so everything, it was just like one thing after another. I'm like, I'm ready to end this before my heart is broken. But I had no good reasons. And so we just kept going. So by Christmas, we had decided this was worth pursuing. And he came out to visit in the fall, and I took him to an Ohio State Wisconsin football game. So that was like a really big win. And then but he like stayed with some of the other interns from the church. And then the second time he came out was in the spring, and I made him stay at the rectory with the priests, which they were gone on retreat, so it didn't even accomplish fully what I wanted it to. But he stayed at the rectory, and he was just like I said, a true father. And so after Andy left, he said, I want you to give me that boy's number. And I was like, okay. And I kind of blew it off because he says things sometimes and I didn't know whether or not to take him seriously. So I blew it off. And like a day or two later, he said, I want that boy's number. And I was like, okay. So I gave him his number, not knowing at all what he was going to say to him. And what I found out later, he told Andy, you have until the end of the summer to propose to her or break up with her, but you cannot string her along, which is what every father should do for their daughter. It was just he was a good man, still is a good man. And Andy has said, I already am one step ahead. I've already talked to my sister about going ring shopping and I'm planning on proposing. So I moved back to Colorado. That's when I left Focus I just felt like I'm in my late 20s. I no longer relate to these. Yeah, I don't relate to those freshman girls the same way that I used to. And I would like to start living an adult life again, you know? So I left Focus. Sadly, it was a very hard departure, but I left and moved to Colorado. And then I did the Camino with the St. Paul's with the group out in Madison. And we went to World Youth Day. And when I came home, Andy had proposed to me then. And so um, Father Nielsen, actually, I had texted him to let him know Andy proposed to me. And he said, that's good because I actually woke up this morning thinking it's the end of summer and that boy hasn't proposed to Gina. I'm going to call him again. So it was just, so anyway,
Oh,
that's how that
beautiful.
story went.
That's beautiful. It's interesting that you say that. That's really beautiful advice from the priest, that he said to find somebody with natural virtue, because I have seen over the years friends of mine who have dated or married men who did all the right things. Went to mass, did daily holy hours, did all sorts of nice prayers, but they were selfish, they were liars. So you could see the same exact thing in the priesthood. Like, I know priests, the whole spectrum of priests, from really beautiful holy priests to liars, manipulators, womanizers. I know the whole entire spectrum. So I think
Yep.
that's really beautiful advice, because you're going to live with the person who does pray, but the most important thing is, are they selfless? Do they think about others? Are they good communicators? Because that's what you're going to really deal with day in and day out. Like I always like to say, a person is not just a spiritual being, we're also human. And so if the emotional side of a person is not healthy, that can really make marriage very hard, or a
Well, how
vocation.
many people do you know that you find out later they were just white knuckling this season of life where it's like, I'm gonna do it all. I'm gonna do Exodus 90, and I'm gonna
Hmm.
do these things, and it's gonna work out all of my, vices because I'm gonna pray it away. And then
Hmm.
they just they can't white knuckle it anymore, and then they give up, and all of a sudden it's like all their demons come back
Right.
because they didn't actually clean it out and fill it with something good in the way that they should. And it's not their fault. It's just they they probably weren't given great advice or they weren't totally open. Maybe they're living a double life, kind of like I was. Um, but it was really important advice. And I tell people that all the time. And for men, like to find a woman who prays, I think that is very important because there are a lot of women out there who also might
Yeah, you were
look.
talking about what men finding a woman that prays. Yeah, and also that's an emotionally healthy person. Not just that they pray, because prayer will get you so far, but that they're also an emotionally healthy person. All right, so let's go ahead and move
Mhm.
on. We're gonna now move on. You guys got married. You had. So why don't we start now? You guys got married, and then we can start with your children and specifically about your daughter who has spina bifida
Yeah.
in that journey.
So my son was born in 2014. He is our only boy.
Hmm.
Had we known that, we would have appreciated it a lot more. But he was born in 2014. And then in 2016, I had actually at this point returned back to Focus for what I don't know how relevant it is to the story, but
Hmm.
I had decided it was a healthier place for me to be as I'm raising a family. And I mean, they were very supportive and it was amazing to find out you're having a special needs child. Also, to have a chapel where you work was really powerful. Um, but we found out at our 20-week ultrasound that there was something wrong, and I didn't, I don't know. Like I said, I've always been strong. I haven't struggled for that many things throughout my life. I mean, I've had moments of struggle, but it's always been a matter of effort. If I just work a little harder, I can accomplish whatever it is I want to accomplish. And my husband is the same way. We're very similar in that way. So he's healthy, I'm healthy. Of course, we're gonna have healthy kids. We took it for granted. So it was really shocking. I'm sure for every family that has bad news at either the birth of their child or at an ultrasound, it's a shock because you just think these kinds of other families have these kinds of situations, not me. And when they said that, they said we need to send you to a high risk doctor because there's something wrong with the brain. There is either no brain or it's full of fluid. And that was all they could see. And so it was like, wait, what does that mean? So she might not, no, we didn't know it was even a she yet, but so the baby may not live. We might like it was just a shock. And I think Andy was with me for this. And so we had to wait 4 hours until the next appointment, which felt like an eternity. And we went and prayed for a long time. And as we were praying, I mean, we were just sobbing. And Andy said, he said, I know it's a girl. And I keep getting the picture of Mother Teresa in my mind. And so I think we're supposed to name her Teresa. And I was like, so he's come a long way in his faith. Like we kind of fast forwarded. He is definitely our spiritual leader now, and he's come a long way. So he is now praise. He lives I mean, he's got better habits than I do now. But at that point, even he had never said anything like that to me, that he just knows we're supposed to name her Teresa. So I was like, okay, I mean, we can talk about other names, but I'm pretty sure this is what we're going to end up naming her if you're having so much consolation in prayer. So we went to the second ultrasound, and they said it was like an hour and a half. They could not figure out what was going on. And this doctor was like, I think I know what it is, but I'm not sure because I can't get a good look at her spine or the baby's spine or whatever. And so finally, he just like leapt out of his chair because they were like, wait, is this it? Yeah, I think I see something right here. And he leapt out of his chair and he said, that's it. I knew it. Okay, I know what this is. And it's fluid in her brain. She has a brain. It's just getting pushed to the outside of her skull. It's fluid. She has spina bifida. We need to do a little bit more research, but you're going to be set up with a team of doctors at Children's Hospital. And this is what they're going to do. And this is what you can expect. And it was just, we were, of course, drinking from a fire hydrant, but at the same time, we were so relieved to know that she would live. And so he was going through all like what would happen, and we said, well, we're really pro-life, so we're going to have this baby. And he said, great, I don't even have to mention the last option then. And to me, like, I did not know at that moment what a blessing he was, because I'm pretty sure every other family I've ever met who has had a child diagnosed with spina bifida has been told to abort. Like they're not going to have any quality of life and you need to terminate this pregnancy. We were not ever, those words didn't even exit his mouth. And I don't even think he was a religious doctor. Like I wrote him a note years later thanking him and he never even responded. So I don't know where he stands on that. I just know he didn't lead with it. And he led with a message of hope for us. So I can only imagine these parents who find out bad news and their doctor tells them you should terminate, and then they feel like they're going against their doctor, and like, what are we doing? It just takes so much courage. I mean, there are single girls who get pregnant and find out they're having a child with spina bifida and they still have the baby. I mean, that is to me so heroic, because I can't imagine being alone in that, and then alone with your doctor too. Like the doctor is even telling you not to do this. But we were not, we had a really positive experience. And so, yeah, she was born at Children's Hospital. It was as good as can be expected, like it was I wanted to be grandfathered into that hospital for all the subsequent births because it was amazing. And she was in the NICU for a month, give or take. And those first 2 years were really hard. It was a really hard transition, and we can get into that later. It was like a 3-year gap before we had any more kids, and we really had to pray, like, do we want more kids? Can we handle this? And we just felt God calling us to one more, so we had one more, and then he called us. It was like, I feel like we're supposed to have one more, and here we are with 5 kids. So we're in a unique situation because we have a really healthy parish with big families that with generous families. They have lots of kids. And then we're part of the spina bifida community. But most of those families, understandably so, stop after they have a child with spina bifida because it's so demanding. And so most of them have 1 or 2 kids. And even the ones that are believers, it's understandable why they would stop. And so we're in both communities, but almost none of them overlap. And most of our friends who have these big families do not understand what our lives look like with special needs. And the special needs community has no idea why we had so many kids. Like they just think we're nuts. And so it just feels it's a very unique journey that there's one other family I know of who has a similar situation, maybe 2 others. But other than that, I just feel like it's a road very rarely traveled.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you mentioned maybe there's families that they like maybe people would understand if you had four children, then you had one with spina bifida, and then you had no more children. But having the second be spina bifida and then more afters.
Hmm.
So can you just go into more? What's it been like? You said you waited 2 years to have more children. What's it been like having a child with spina bifida? The uncertainty of lifespan, all the different facets that come with it. What has that been like for you and for your family?
Yeah. We have had to learn what suffering really means. And I mean, it's been hard and it almost is just this blur. Like originally I would describe it as waves. Like it would be a wave of intensity and then there would be a little bit of a reprieve and we'd hit another wave unexpectedly. But I would say in the last 5 years, it's felt like just one large tsunami and with no break. And I would pray about it and I just felt like God was saying, well, when things are going well, you wander. So I'm keeping you close to me, you know? And that
Mm,
may be, but I do think the other thing that um, was, I think, more powerful than I realized is while I was in Wisconsin, I started praying the St. Bridget prayers. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. There's like 1 year prayer and then 12-year prayers.
mhm.
And as a missionary, I did both because why not? I just but now I'm like, that's so funny that I ever had time to do that. But I did continue the 12-year prayers all the way through. And I'm finished with them now. But I was praying them one day and I'm like, Lord, like I am drowning in life.
Mhm.
I don't know where to turn. I'm just drowning. Why are you doing this? And then I'm praying these prayers and I was like, one of the promises of these prayers is that you will suffer no purgatory and that the three successive generations after you will go to heaven. Like, do you think that's just a free hall pass? Like, just because you say these prayers, you get to have all these, like, you'd have the suffering that you go through actually draws you so close to his heart that also comes with it. And it was just this
Mhm.
light bulb like, oh yeah, I'm praying these prayers because I want to get to heaven. And I want my children to go to heaven. And so of course we're going through all of this because this is the path. This is the way of the cross. You know, we all
Mhm.
have our own, but it it's nothing I've ever experienced before. Like,
Yeah. And when
you
you
know,
say, Gina, you say tsunami, are you talking about medical procedures? Are you talking about just handling five children? I know at one point you were working still, you left your job. So can you just maybe get a little bit more specific? What does that mean that your life feels like it's been
it's everything. It's so like, yes, learning the special needs, all the medical procedures, the numerous hospital visits. I mean, there was one point, I'm trying to remember the timeline. I think it was if this all lined up together that my daughter had been, Reese is her name. We call her Reese, short for Teresa. She had been getting a lot of UTIs because she has what's called a neurogenic bowel and bladder, and she can't pee or go to the bathroom at all on her own. And so we have to cath her every 3 hours every day to get her to go to the bathroom. And that introduces bacteria. So it's very common for them to get urinary tract infections. And so we were in a cycle of getting a UTI and then having antibiotics. And that antibiotic wasn't doing enough. So we would do a second, and we did 3 antibiotics back to back. And she got something called C. diff, which was basically like the bad bacteria took over her gut. And it was horrific for anyone who has ever experienced it. I had no idea. But you basically are on the toilet all day. You just can't stop. And so we would get that kind of cleared up a little bit, and then she'd get a UTI, and we would have to go back on antibiotics. This was like 6 months of like, we can't get out of this spin. And so we ended up doing what's called a fecal transplant, which is like so crazy and amazing that we can do it, and also the weirdest procedure. But we got it under control. And our GI doctor wanted to also do a colonoscopy to make sure there wasn't more going on. And in doing so, for lots of reasons, she ended up becoming septic. And thankfully, our surgeon who did the colonoscopy was a little bit suspicious that that might happen. So he admitted her that night instead of going home. And luckily, because in the middle of the night, she just went off a cliff, just took a turn. And I was nursing at the time, so I couldn't stay at the hospital. My husband was there, and he's a really good dad, but like it's hard to not be there as a mom. And so it was really scary. I mean, to see your child take, I don't know how many bags of fluid, like huge bolus bags of fluid she took in and didn't pee a thing out. I mean, it was crazy. So we were really worried that, the worst was coming. And then all of a sudden they got on top of it and she recovered. So she became septic. And at the same time, around that same time, I'm pretty sure, our house flooded. And like, when I say flooded, I mean, we came home from church and it was raining in our house. Like our master bath, something had, the main water line had exploded and just, we were gone. So it just kept raining in our house. So we had to move out. And like, I don't even know what you do. Like, I was like, I was just speechless. Like, what do you do when your house is flooding? I don't even know. And so Andy had to I just took the kids on a walk to like, cause they were crying and I was like, I don't know. So he like took care of all of that and had people come in and like try to clean it up. But we spent 3 months out of our house and it was like hotels and my mom's house and apartment and hotels and moving all of our stuff. And so like we have this daughter who isn't able to walk and another child who's in, I don't know, preschool, I think is what he was at the time, maybe kindergarten. And I was pregnant and we're having to move our house, all the furniture, like for months. And there was I didn't know what we were going to eat for the next meal because I didn't know where we were going to be. I didn't know where we were going to do laundry. Like it was just chaos. And I remember talking to a spiritual director and he said, because I'm like, I can't, I have no foundation. And so these big things that are hitting us, I can't manage because I have no foundation. I have nothing stable right now. I mean, just going to the grocery store was like such a relief the first time I could go because this is a grocery store. I can get food and I can put it somewhere and I know we'll have it for the next meal. But he said, well, every good forest has a sycamore tree. Or not sycamore. Is that sycamore? No. Those giant ones. The giant ones in California, like not the redwoods, but
I know
what
the
are those
redwoods.
trees?
That's it.
Okay, we'll call it a redwood, but that's not what it was. People who are listening are probably shouting it. But those giant trees, and he said every good forest has a redwood, right? And he said, and you have found yours, and thank God you have. And I was like, that's a really weird thing to say, that thank God I found mine. And he said, because they are a force to be reckoned with. He said, you cannot go around it. You can't climb it. You can't go through it. He said, you have to deal with it. And it is showing you where your limits are and it's bringing you to your knees. And thank God he did. And I didn't understand it for a long time. Like, why would I want that? You don't understand how hard life is right now. And I like, why would I want something like this that brings me to my knees? But it's because it humbles you and it shows you like I needed the Lord. I could not function without him. And thank God I know that. And then I know where my limits, like I am weak and I am incapable. I mean, it was just like it stripped everything from us. So there was that. I was just a few months before that, I was in a rollover accident. An old lady turned in front of us and broadsided us. And so that was, my kids were in it. We rolled, and it was just like, that was another thing. And then, Andy has gone through 2 rounds of unemployment. And so learning how to manage unemployment, just big stuff in life that just keeps hitting us in the midst of surgeries. Like the last 2 years in the fall, we've had to take Reese to Florida for these massive surgeries because this surgeon in Florida is the best. But one of them was a hip reconstruction last year that has a 60% failure rate. And when I say failure rate, I don't mean it just didn't work. I mean, she'll never walk again if it doesn't work. And she's always used a walker. And so she's never really walked independently, but she is able to somewhat be independent. And so the idea of maybe like if we don't do the surgery, she won't be walking in a few years anyway, but that would happen gradually versus overnight. All of a sudden, because we did this surgery, she isn't able to walk. And that's like, we did that to her, it's scary. So we went through, we're like, well, let's do this surgeon because he's the best. And they were going to do a way more invasive surgery here in Colorado. and he was going to be a lot more strategic with how he did it. And it went really well, but it was like 6 months, that she was in a wheelchair and recovering, and I was having a baby while she had the surgery a couple weeks after I had a baby. And so it was just like, and I couldn't lift her. She was in this double cast. She couldn't move her legs. And she was 7. I mean, she wasn't a small child.
Hmm.
And then this year we did another one with the same surgeon for her ankles. And so again, she's in 2 casts in a wheelchair for 6 months,
Hmm.
back to back years where we just had been stuck inside. And, like COVID on top of all of this stuff, like we've just been inside in our hole for many years of parenthood. And that's hard, for someone who I am adventurous and like I like to be out and about. My husband is even more so. And so it's been really humbling to just, this is where the Lord is calling us. And I think too, there are a lot of profound lessons like we can expand on as we go. But one of the things is, I think all of parenthood and probably all of our vocations are mostly a hidden life. But like, it's a different kind of hidden I mean, her life is really hidden and her suffering is really hidden. And being her caretakers, like it looks on the outside like everything's great, and it is great. Like we have a lot to be thankful for. But it's just the kind of suffering that like the day in and day out, like knowing I could explain all the things we do, and it wouldn't sound like that much until you're in it, and it's the kind of thing like you just can't explain to someone what why you had a hard day. They have to fully enter into your life to understand it. And I think that's true for anyone, but this in particular, with a physical disability, I don't know, I think about what I was like before having Reese, and I don't know that I much noticed those people with physical disabilities because it wasn't my problem. I mean, it sounds so harsh, but like it's their life and they're in the back of the room and they probably have people that help them. That's kind of what, if I'm being honest, like that's kind of what I would tell myself.
Hmm.
And now being that person in the back of the room it's like you just are, people don't notice, you know?
Right.
And it's not, I don't hold anything against anybody because it's human nature and that's where I was too. But being in that, it's just a humbling place to be. And I mean, she is very close to the Lord. I know that she really changes hearts. There's just so much to be thankful for, but
Hmm.
there's a lot that is hidden. And I
Hmm.
think that has been, probably good for my holiness too, you know, but it's just been a process of adjustment to learn, like, and even with our other kids, like they have to learn, we say no to a lot of things and we don't really go on vacations very much. You have to be like very safe, like not too far away, close to a hospital, and we can't do a whole lot of activity. We have to be very particular. And people will invite us to do things and it's like, we can't do that. Like, there's just no way we can do that. Either we have 5 kids and you guys have 1 or 2 and there's no way we can bring the whole train, or physically we just can't do it. So the kids have had to learn too, like there are things that we just are not able to do. And I'm very sorry, but it's good for them also, to learn how to sacrifice. And so I don't know, the world doesn't value imperfection. They don't value a slower pace and taking care of others. And so that it's very countercultural in that way. But he glorifies it too. Like
Hmm.
he brings beauty out of it. And so in some ways we're privileged to be able to have those front row seats to it. But it is a hidden life.
Right. It's a hidden in the secret of your home with you, your family. Only God sees all of that, really, you guys
Hmm.
and God. Can you share just a little bit about how having a child with disabilities has changed your marriage, how it's also changed your faith or helped you grow? You have touched on it, but anything else you want to share about
Hmm.
that?
Um, so when we first found out that she had spina bifida, um, it was obviously a huge shock, but I was working, like I said, at Focus. So it was really nice. I mean, I would pray a lot, but also the people who I worked with they do value human life, and all human life. And also there was one executive in particular who has a son with special needs, and he pulled me into his office. His son has autism, a pretty significant autism, or severe, I guess. And he pulled me into his office and he said, I obviously don't know what it's like in the physical side of things, but he said, for us, you need to guard your marriage, because what happens in the special needs community is the mom usually completely consumes herself in that community and trying to find help and resources for their child, and just advocating and all the therapies, and just totally consumed in that world. And then the dad sort of gets kind of separated and just is sort of there, And so it drives a wedge in the marriage. And the woman, the mother is like consumed with her child, and like what doesn't understand why her husband isn't, but he just wants his wife also. And so a lot of divorces happen in families with special needs. And I'm sure it's the same with, a death of a child, that sort of thing. I'm sure it's the same kind of effect. But he just told me that we needed to guard against that and really not lose sight of our marriage. And that was very helpful on the front end to keep that in mind. I think it was also very, very wise advice. So that was probably the first thing, because you just don't know how, you're just reacting. And I still feel like in many ways we're reacting. But that was good for us to find ways. I mean, it's really hard to find ways to put each other first because we don't have a whole lot of
Right.
help. So we can't go on dates. We have to get creative. Like even there've been seasons where it's like, you go out of town with your friends and just refresh. I go out of town with mine, and then we'll try to find times like after bedtime, we try to play games together or something where it's like we're at least doing something. But that's been pretty tricky. What was the question you asked me?
Oh, so just both how it's your marriage, so you kind of touched on that, but
Okay.
also relationship with God and the Lord. And you've also touched about how the children have been impacted by it. It's helping them learn sacrifice, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of things you can't do. So I don't know, we have to go too much more into
Mm-hmm.
that, but just how has it also impacted your relationship with the Lord?
Mm-hmm. So just one more thing about the marriage too. It's increased, I think, both of our respect for each other, because just seeing the ways that Andy sacrifices himself completely for Reese, but for all of the family, is just incredible. And I don't think, I mean, maybe most men would do it. I don't know. I just feel like it's required a level of generosity and selflessness that is not easy to find. And that's what I recognized in him when I was dating him, is like, why do you understand that your goal as a future husband and father is to serve your family? Like, not most, I didn't know that. I had to learn that,
Mm,
and he just knew it. So he's really lived that out, and it makes you fall more in love with them, because you're just amazed that they would give so generously and sacrificially and never complain. I mean, I can't tell you how many times he's like, what serves you? What serves you? When we're trying to decide, do you want to do this or this? Well, what serves you? And actually I can't, now that we're talking about it, I can't really say that I say the same thing to him.
Gina.
Maybe I should do that more. Um, but I mean, we just see how the other gives so intensely. And like with these surgeries, he's the one that's gone with Reese to Florida, and the stories he comes back with. I mean, he actually, so the first surgery last year in 2024, he was flying out of Florida when Helene, like hours before Helene hit.
Mhm.
And then they had 3 or 4 more trips she had like consecutive weeks she had to go out there. And then for the actual surgery, he was flying into Milton, and like all of Florida, the whole thing, as you know, was red
Mhm.
with emergency evacuation orders. And then there's this little tiny hole at Fort Lauderdale where we were landing that had no emergency evacuation orders. And that's where we were landing.
Mhm.
And then he had to drive an hour, through tornadoes and stuff and he didn't know that. But like when he landed and started driving north, he said the first song that came on the radio was In the Eye of the Storm, as he's like driving through this. So they ended up, like, against all odds, they had the surgery, but like he was flying into this hurricane like, what am I doing? This is madness. And I have this girl in two casts. Like, we can't just run. I can't just like pack her up and leave, you know? We are in it. So there are just a lot of things he's done that have been so sacrificial that just increase your respect for each other, and we need each other. Like, we need each other. I'm just so grateful. I don't know. God knew what he was doing. So I would say that, and I think it's softened my heart a lot. I mean, I was empathetic and stuff before, but not to the degree that I am now. And I think one of the things that I see in the special needs community is a lot of self-pity. And I'm not saying I don't ever feel sorry for myself, because I definitely have my moments. But a lot of them, it's just like, oh yeah, my friend was complaining to me about their sick kid. Like, let me tell you about sick, and they have this bitterness. And I understand that, because there are times where it's like the level of suffering is like so, it's just not even comparable in some ways. But in other ways, I'm like, yeah, but I have kids when they get the flu, it's just as bad as when I have a child who's about to have surgery. Like, I suffer just as much for both. And I read Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And one of the things he talks about is how suffering is like a gas, and it doesn't matter how much or how little it is, it will fill the space. And so I think that has really, I mean, I've learned that like, it doesn't matter if it's a major issue with your child or a small one, it feels the same, and you have the same reaction. And so to have a little more compassion on other parents who don't know what you're going through, but also like, I mean, I see people who have it much more severe than we do. And so then having that respect, like, I don't know what you go through on a daily basis, because I know what I go through, and how much respect I have. And for the, nonverbal, non-mobile, very high needs children, that's like it's a special cross, and God gives many blessings that far exceed the suffering, but like, it's real. So I would say just having a softer heart towards all those scenarios. And I think the other thing is, like, as a mom, it cured me of the comparison game, because one of the things, I don't know why, it just naturally happens when you have your first child. It's like, I think it's out of an insecurity. Like, I don't know, should we be doing that? I'm not doing that with my child. They're not walking yet, and that one is younger, and that child's walking. What am I doing wrong? They haven't said this word yet. And it's just this like, what should I be doing? Do I need to get them in more activities? Am I doing a bad job? Because you don't know what you're doing. Like,
Right.
if I had any idea how little my mom knew, I would have probably exploited that a lot more. But like, you just, like, I really thought, once you become a mom, because my mom was always right, just always right. So I just thought, as soon as you become a mom, one of the graces is that you're always right. And like, I really believe that. And so then as a mom, I'm like, I'm still not always right. Why am I not always, I'm like never right. And so I just have this, I always am wondering, like, you only have one shot,
Right.
and you don't know until they're, 18, whether or not, even sometimes 25 or so, like, did we do it right? And so like, you're just always questioning, should we be doing something differently? And so you're just comparing all the time, like, well, that child is doing this and mine is only doing it this way. And 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 so having Reese, it was like, we are not in this game at all, because
Right.
our milestones are totally different. Like, I'm just happy she's holding her head up right now. I'm just happy, and it's just these teeny tiny micro milestones. And it just cured that, because it was like, she's on her own timeline, and I'm here to just support her and help her reach her potential, whatever that is. And so I think it loosened me up. And one of the things that I've reflected on in the last, I don't know, year or two, the image that comes to mind is in scripture, when Jesus talks about not putting old wine in new wineskins. And that, like, I think this happens anyway with more than one or two children. It happens to anyone, but like, really, I feel like the wineskins have stretched, and I've like kind of settled in and relaxed a lot more. And just like, I'm not as high strung probably and worried about things. And I think because we have had so many close calls too, that it's like, I know what an emergency is, and I know what that feels like. And then I know when it's like, we just have to sit this one out and just like let time take its course.
Right.
And it's in the, and like learn the
Perspective.
big picture.
Hmm.
Yeah, perspective. Like
Hmm.
the big picture doesn't matter. Probably not. Like there are a lot of things in my life that at the time I thought were like I studied abroad in Italy. That was so big, and like this is such a big deal. It's like so important in my life to have an experience like this. And it was beautiful and big at the time. But like, how often do I think of my study abroad days?
Hmm.
As a mom in my situation. Very little,
Hmm.
very little. I actually don't even remember that much.
Hmm.
So like all these things that I thought were so big actually don't, because what matters is like getting to heaven. That's what matters. Where is our soul? Like where the character and like the like giving of yourself. And so I think that is one of the things that helps me just with the special needs thing. I feel so bad that we have to say no to our kids on so many things. We just miss out on a lot, a lot, a
Yeah.
lot, a lot.
Yeah.
And, but like, does it matter? No, because God is still gonna, we're still gonna have different experiences. He's gonna take us where we need to go. And in the end, those things are going to be behind them. And like,
Hmm.
it does shape you, but like other things shape you too. So it
Hmm.
doesn't, I don't know. I just think having that perspective, like in the end, it doesn't matter. And
Hmm.
that is what I have to focus on.
Hmm.
Um,
Beautiful. Do you want to
yeah.
share just about your relationship with the Lord, how it's changed
Yes.
at all? Yeah.
I think, um, I, it's very difficult because I legitimately do not have time in my day to have the quiet mental prayer that I desire. Like when I was a missionary, it was still like, I'm supposed to do this. I'm supposed to
Hmm.
pray. I need to pray in order to have the fuel to get through the day. But now, like, I actually like desire it because I never have it. And so when I get it, another priest had told me that as a mom, God will bless whatever time you can give him as long as you give out of what you are able to, like the first fruits, he will bless that and multiply it.
Hmm.
And I've relied on that a lot. Just like I only have these 5 or 10 minutes right now, and then I'll have another window here. But to make sure I'm making the most of that. And like, just like I said, in the suffering to understand, like, the Lord is drawing me to him and like he was wanting to keep me close and that this truly is the way of the cross. Um, and being thankful for that. Like, these years, these are hard years. And a lot of people go through like a period of time of hard years, whatever that looks like for you. And God is forging you in those years, but it's not forever. And I keep thinking like he has done so much work in my heart to teach me how to be less selfish. I mean, he has stripped me. I feel impoverished and not financially, but like, well, I'll finish this out. He has stripped me of a lot of things. And it would be a shame that like once we're, in 15 or 20 years when our kids are older and much more independent, it would be a shame to lose all that work that he's done in my heart and to be indulgent and like, just start feeling like I can do all these things for myself again. But instead to like learn to be more, have my eyes out to others who need help. Because one of the things right now, like we can't give. This is probably one of the most impactful lessons I've learned with God. Like we always in scripture, it says it's better to give than to receive. And I've known that. And here we are in this season of life. I can't give anything. I can't give. I have nothing to give. I am poor. And like our house, there's a reason that it's blurred behind me. I mean, our house is a mess. I cannot, and there's nothing I can do about it because I don't
Hmm.
have hands or time to fix it. And I know a lot of people in certain seasons feel this way.
Hmm.
It's not unique to like a special needs family, but there's nothing I can do about it. But it actually holds me back from like, I don't invite people over as much as I want not because I think they'll judge. I know they won't. And even if they do, that does nothing to do with me. It's just like this, I'm inviting them to this vulnerability. Like this is how poor I feel that I can't even maintain order right now. And I don't have like, we all want to take care of, I would think most of us want to take care of our neighbors. Someone has a spouse in the hospital or they have a baby, you want to bring them meals. And I'm like, I can't bring meals right now.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I
but
know people understand, but like I've
mhm.
always been able to I'm so good at standing on my own 2 feet that I can help the people around me. And in the last 8 years, like every now and then we can help. And when we can, it is so rewarding. But by and large, we can't. And it's very hard. And it's taken a lot of humility to receive. And I was reading a book by about Saint Francis of Assisi, and he said, like, it wasn't until he gave away all of his belongings, and it wasn't until he had nothing left that he could not give, and all he could do was receive, that he really felt that poverty that he needed. And that was like, when he said that, I was like, that's exactly how I feel. Like, I have been stripped in a way that I just did not know was possible. And I have very little to, I give everything I have to my family. And I try, when the opportunity presents, I will give of my heart, or I'll offer my day for people, that kind of a thing. But I just, it's a different level of poverty, I guess. And so in that, understanding that we actually do need to learn how to receive also. And that is humbling. And not only to learn how to receive, but to learn how to ask for help, because that's also not easy. And I know a lot of people who are very holy, but they refuse to ask for help when I know they need to ask, but they won't do it. And you can't read their minds. You can't know what they're going through. And I get it, because I've had to wrestle with it. But I would say that has been something that I've taken to God, like how this is really hard. I hate just being on the receiving end. I mean, my sister-in-law did a GoFundMe last year for us for Reese's surgery, because it was very unexpected, and like it was a lot of money, all the flights and stuff and the whole thing. And it was really humbling the way people stepped up and offered meals, offered like money, and like they literally carried us through. It was the hands and feet of Christ carrying us through that season of having a baby while having a child have this intense surgery across the country. And I could not show I'm like, there's no way I can show my gratitude enough. And I remember going through this when I had that moment of understanding, like, I am a daughter of God, that I realized, like, there is nothing I can do to pay off my debt to God. Nothing. I mean, the debt he paid is eternal. And I just felt like that, like St. Therese says, that little thimble, the tiny little heart, my tiny little heart was just so overwhelmed that it was overflowing. And like, I almost wanted to just push it away and give it back, because I couldn't repay God, like, I don't deserve this. Take it away. But all he wanted was for me to receive it. Like, I know that you can't, and your heart will grow, but I need you to receive. And I know you can't pay me back. And who do you think you are that you could ever pay me back? Like, what kind of pride is that? You just need to receive. And feeling like I can never pay these people back. I can never show them my gratitude enough. And I had to make peace with that. And like that, a priest once said, the sick and the dying are the heart of the church. And like in their giving, and me honoring their gift and being grateful, it is their payment, like they are grateful to be able to help. That gives them a chance to help. Someday I'm going to want to do it too again, but I'm not in that place right now. And so just learning how to receive with grace, how to receive knowing I can't ever pay it back. But like, what does that mean in terms of the kingdom of God? And like, that is, all of us fall into that same category. None of us can repay. None of us deserve what we've been given. It's a debt that none of us, even together, could not repay. And so, I mean, I think, like, at one point in a confession, a priest told me, it doesn't matter what happens to you, it matters how you respond. And I think obviously our burden is unique, but everyone's burden is unique, and it doesn't matter. The thing that happens, it's that we all find that redwood tree, or whatever the tree is called. And we all find that tree, and we all have to come to terms with it. And we fall to our knees knowing, like, I need you, Lord. I cannot do this alone, and I can't ever pay you back. It's a free gift. I have to receive it.
Right.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I don't think there was anything else I can think of off the top of my head that I wanted to say about that.
Yeah, relationship with the Lord, and just accepting, but also realizing you're at a different stage. At one point in your life, you were able to go to daily mass, pray a holy hour, pray all sorts of novenas. And now you're just like 5 minutes, I can connect with God. So it's a very, very different season. Yes, absolutely. Is there anything you want to share about motherhood, about marriage, about your relationship with the Lord, about having a child with disabilities, Reese?
I think it's easier said than done, but like to not let fear consume you. And there's a point we all have to suffer. Like that's kind of a requirement for the way of the cross. And so to just not, I think there's going to be fear and there's going to be anxiety with like when you see a mountain in front of you, but to not let that make your decision for you. Like I think about that moment when we found out we were having a child with spina bifida and like, I can't do this. I'm not cut out for this. This is wrong. It's the ultrasound was wrong. I can't do that because it's just too much. Like you just it's like overwhelming what is in front of you. Um, but that fear I mean, you have to keep moving forward like one step at a time. And that's all God asks is one step at a time, no matter what our burden is. And I mean, I don't know. I think the fear is a real thing though, especially when you're given news of something, someone died or something is changing in your life. You don't have a job anymore, whatever it is, that news is crippling, but that you have to still put that next foot in front of the other one and trust that God is going to be there to show you where the next step will be. But it's just the glory, the goodness that he has in store during that suffering, like the sweetness, to not forget that because it's easy to look past the sweetness and only focus on the hard stuff. And I'm saying that as someone, I mean, that's like my biggest struggle, and just to remember like he is present and, when our house flooded and everything, and I was talking to our spiritual director, he's like, but in that moment when you didn't know what to do with the house, what did you do? So I told my husband and I went on a walk and he's like, and your husband was there, right? To figure it out. God gave you what you needed in that moment to get through it. Even though it doesn't feel like it, like he gave you exactly what you needed. And I think the last thing I'll probably end with this is I've always thought grace was like this tailwind that makes everything easier and just I have the grace of God. And sometimes that is true. Like there are times where it's like, well, I don't know how I did that. It was God. But actually, I think the better analogy is like when you're lifting weights and you're like bench pressing and you're about to crush your chest and your spotter comes and like gives you one finger and just helps you enough to get that bar up. And it's like you could have helped me a little bit more. I almost crushed my chest, but you didn't. You didn't crush your chest. You got stronger. And it's because I didn't do it for you. I just helped you only enough that you got stronger. And I think that that's something that to remember, like just with grace, that sometimes it doesn't feel like it's there, but it is. And it's enough to help us get stronger.
Beautiful, my friend. And then also, if there's somebody who's new to the spina bifida journey in particular, or is like starting to research, they just found out that their child is going to have spina bifida, or they just had a child that has spina bifida. Do you have any resources that you would recommend to point them to, or books, or anything that you would recommend?
Um, I would say the thing that's been the most helpful for me is finding parent groups on Facebook. It's actually like sometimes it's the only reason I'm on Facebook is for the group. It's very helpful for advice. That's how I found the surgeon in Florida. It's great for like, what do we expect with this particular situation? How do I find a solution to this? I don't know, it's been invaluable. So I would say the most important thing I did was find these Facebook pages. I wish I had found them when I was pregnant with Reese. But I didn't find them till later. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is to use your best self-discipline to not Google too much. You can really get lost and overly anxious, especially like if you're pregnant with a child with special needs and the baby hasn't been born yet. I mean, spina bifida is really interesting because there is fetal surgery. We were not candidates for it for whatever reason. I don't even know. I didn't even challenge it at the time. I don't even know why we weren't. But we did not have the fetal surgery. So we just waited. It was like, I know she's perfectly healthy in my womb right now. She has everything she needs. I also know there's a storm waiting for me on the other side. And I have no idea what it's going to look like. I've looked at what it could look like. I did some research to see like generally what should I expect. And the doctors had told me like these are some of the things that most kids have here. There are a lot of ways it could go, but we won't know until she's born. And so I was like, I just can't keep reading all these stories because then I'm not gonna enjoy my pregnancy and I'm gonna be a stress ball. And that's also not helpful for her. So it was like, I'm gonna be joyful. Like it was almost hard. We did like a gender reveal at Christmas and I was like, do we even do the gender reveal anymore? Do we even, because I was like so sad. And like, yes, we do the gender reveal because it's still joyful. It's still a good thing. And I'm still happy like, I'm afraid, but at the same time, there was still a joy there because this is the daughter that the Lord gave us. He created her this way. He allowed this for a reason. I don't know what that reason is. I just know He allowed it. And so just learning how to be pregnant and joyful and not over stress until she's born because at the end of the day, there's nothing I could do, even while I was pregnant, to prepare. So if I can't do anything, then I may as well find joy in that pregnancy, knowing she has all of her needs met right now. And then after she was born, to just take it one step at a time. And even now, there's always things where it's like, this could happen, but it hasn't happened now. And so if it hasn't happened, then I have to just take it, just live in the day. Like, this is where we're at today. And so I mean, a doctor had once told us there was something he thought she had, and he's like, don't Google it, please. And I didn't.
That's
And
smart.
it was like, I should not, I need to exercise a lot of caution with Google because you can see the worst and then get yourself worked up. So we were very, I think, limited on what we allowed ourselves to look into. And I would recommend that for other families. Like, look to the extent that you need information and then do not go any further.
Right. Because you can get yourself really worked up about something that may never even happen.
Yeah.
And never
Yeah.
be your circumstances. So
And
it's
if it
like,
does, what is it going to do anyway?
right.
Even if it does happen,
Yep.
there's nothing you can do about it. And you're going to be given the resources you need in the moment when you have it.
Right.
And there are just a lot of good people out there who desire to help. There are a lot of good people. You see the best of humanity sometimes when Reese is around. I mean, it's like the best comes out. So He will find a way. So I would say those are the two things. I haven't read any books that are that helpful, to be honest. But the parent groups, I think, are the best. And then there's like local Spina Bifida chapters. I think it's like SBA, Spina Bifida Association, and then whatever the state is. They have their specific associations. And they have groups that meet up. Like ours, we meet up once a year with other Spina Bifida families, and that's been so life-giving to just see like, there's so much we have in common. We don't even have to talk about, like, oh, what do you do for this? Who do you use for this? And it's just so helpful. And for my daughter to have positive peer pressure from other kids older than her who it's like they should not be walking. Physics tells me you should not be walking, and you are. Somehow you have found a way to do it. So Reese, if you want it bad enough, you can do it too, you know? And like going to wheelchair sports camps and things like that. There are just things that we have found that have been life-giving. And they're unique. Only she gets to do it. You know, it's a special thing that only she gets to do. So, yeah, I think that probably sums it up.
All right, my friend. Well, are you sure there's nothing else you want to share? Marriage,
I can
parenting.
always talk more, Cassandra. I can talk for another 2 hours. You can't have it that long.
That is true.
I think everyone needs to hear my opinion about things.
This is a woman who stays at home most of the day, so she needs an outlet to get it out. We have provided her for that today. So
That's right. I hope it has not been too boring. But yes.
it was great. Well, thank you, my friend Gina. I'm very grateful for you being on my podcast, and to all of my listeners, thank you for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment, and I will do my best to respond. I hope you have a great morning, day, or night wherever you are in the world, and God bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye.